So, you've been practicing your scales, your 2-5-1s, learning a bunch of tunes. But you still feel like your playing is stuck and that you're not progressing in the way that you want to. Today we're going to dig into one simple change that you can make to your practice routine that will help kind of get things moving in the right direction and get you out of your practice rut. At the beginning of the year, I think many of us are looking for maybe ways to change up our practice or try something fresh or make sure that we're progressing in the best way possible. The problem can become when we're working on becoming better improvisers, kind of day over day, week over week, we can run into places where we get sort of stuck or get in a rut because we're dealing with concepts that are over a long period of time. We can kind of lose perspective on whether we're improving or not. Additionally, when we're working on something, our trajectory tends to start out being pretty good. We kind of improve, and then that improvement sort of levels off, and eventually we plateau on whatever idea we're working on. Our first instinct might be to double down on what we're doing and just practice more, longer, more of the same concept. That can get you somewhere, but I would challenge you to actually think about changing up how you practice in order to push through that plateau and see your improvement kind of get on that upward trajectory again. To help this happen, in today's session, we're actually going to look at ways that you can play your horn less and see more improvement. Now, that might seem like a funny thing for me to recommend to you or to any of my students, is to actually play less. Now, I'm not talking about practicing less. I'm talking about the amount of time that your horn is actually on your face and you are playing during your practice sessions. For me, in my own practice, and what I really recommend to most of my students, is to think about sort of an 80-20 or maybe 70-30 split of time that you're actually actively playing, and then the rest of the time where you're doing something else that is going to inform how you practice. There are a lot of things you can do in this direction. Breathing exercises, maybe singing through a passage, listening to a great recording that illustrates what you're trying to work on or is the tune or the piece that you're trying to work on. These are all really important strategies that you should utilize. But today we're going to talk about my number one thing that I do every single day and really helps everything stay in perspective and make sure that I'm making progress on the concepts that I want to, and that is recording myself and listening back. This is by no means a technique that's unique to me or something that I came up with. You'll find this advice from many great teachers. You'll find it all over the internet. It is something that all of us need to do to make sure that we're really improving the ways that we think we are. So rather than just giving you this advice, which probably many of you have heard before, we're actually going to break it down. I'm going to play a chorus, we're going to listen back to it, and I'm going to think about, all right, well, what did I successfully execute and less successfully execute in this chorus to see what that actually looks like when we're doing this sort of practice technique. Recently, one of the concepts I have been working on is trying to create better phrases and use my breathing to help me with that. So really being intentional about, like, I play an idea, there is an intentional rest, a phrase place, I get a good breath to the next idea. I tend to find, especially at faster tempos or on challenging tunes, I get a little bit tense when I play because I'm not breathing in the best place. I just try to play really long phrases and then there's nowhere to breathe. That tension also tends to travel into my left hand for me. I notice that I carry a lot of tension there that eventually travels up my arm and just everything gets kind of tight at those faster tempos. So that's been a concept I've been working on lately and have been focusing a lot on this recording process to see if I can sort of figure out my playing. What I just told you is the first step you need to do before you record yourself. You need to identify what concept you're even trying to deal with. This isn't about saying, I sound good, I sound bad, anything like that. It's about thinking about what am I really working on and do I hear, or in my case, possibly see myself executing those things. Now that we've identified the concept, let's hear this one chorus. I'm going to play it on a B-flat rhythm changes at sort of a medium up tempo around like 200, 210. And we're going to see how I do at executing this. See if I get good breaths in there, see if there's any evidence of tension in my playing. Okay, cool. So some things I thought were working in that chorus, some things maybe less so. Before I go back and listen to it, I want to reacquaint myself with that concept that I'm working on, and I also want to put myself in a position where I'm evaluating objectively. So when I talk about objectively evaluating something, I'm trying to avoid value judgments of like, oh, I sound great today, or oh, I sound like trash today. These type of things tend to lead us down rabbit holes in our practice, and we just sort of end up chasing sounding good rather than really thinking about, am I progressing on a given concept? That's what we want to think about, is do I make a little progress each day on this concept? So we're going to listen back together. I'm going to talk a little bit over this track as I hear a couple things happening. And like I said, I'm going to avoid value judgments. I'm really going to think about, did I execute the concept I was looking to do? I might actually hear some other things in here as well that will be informative for my playing. We'll see what happens when we listen back to this. All right, there was a good phrase. Clear breath. All right, good. I give myself some time getting into the bridge. All right, my sound got away from me a little bit there. I didn't have enough air. I played that phrase too long. Cool, that's the process. Now I would probably immediately play again right now, immediately play another chorus. I wouldn't really think about actively trying to fix those things. I would make a mental note of what I heard. I might give myself a clear directive about like, okay, this is what I want to hear. In my case, maybe leaving a little more space where the phrase markings are, making sure that if I feel like I haven't had time to take a breath, I just don't start playing again, that I give myself time to take a breath. One other thing I noticed in there that I didn't necessarily expect is my time was not so great in just a couple of places. So that might be something that if I was going to do another take immediately, which is probably what I would do, I would maybe give myself a little bit of a directive to just be a little bit more cognizant of where the pulse is. As I mentioned, there were no value judgments, no commenting on, oh, I sound great, or oh, I don't sound good. It's all about, am I executing the concepts? So from there, I would probably immediately record another chorus, and I would give myself sort of a couple of notes. What did I hear? What do I want to hear? Give myself a clear directive about what I want to accomplish in the next chorus. Try again. I might do this for 2-3 choruses and then just practice the concept through a handful of choruses, maybe another 6 or 10 choruses, and then record again and see how that stuff all interplays to keep me moving along the path on these concepts. The reason that this is so effective is if you did this process, say you were working on a given tune for 15 minutes, and maybe somewhere between 3 to 5 minutes of that you were actually in this recording and listening process, you would actually improve more by not playing for those 3 to 5 minutes and doing this process of listening back than you would have if you would have just played through those 3 to 5 minutes and gotten in another 3 choruses. If you don't have a way to effectively evaluate objectively what you're doing, those 3 choruses, in all honesty, just might have been wasted because you probably would have just been making the same mistakes that you were making for the choruses before that. So you need to stop for a moment, check out what you're doing, and then get back into practice. Cool, that's all we've got for today. This is such an important practice skill that you need to develop in your own playing. It doesn't just work on jazz, this works on all styles of music. It's just a way that we want to sort of effectively evaluate what we're doing. Take ourselves out of the instrument for a second, and then when we come back to it, we're gonna have a fresh perspective about if we're really executing the way we want to. Sometimes things will sound better than you think they were. Sometimes maybe they need a little more work than you think they did. It's all good. This is all part of the process. I look forward to posting a lot more stuff this year on improvisation, trombone, otherwise. And other than that, I hope I will see you in the woodshed.